I'm Angela, the attachment activist, the founder of Primal Psychology, which produces the Primal Parenting podcast under our nonprofit initiative, the Primal Parenting Initiative. Today, I'm going to do my first stab at what I want to call the culture files, because the culture is what is destroying attachment, and the culture determines the society that we raise our children. So we have to look at what's going on in the culture because it is what we're up against as parents. And the family union, the sacred union, which I have a couples program for enhancing, elevating the sacred union, which is also what's best for children. The family union and the sacred union, all of that is what helps us raise the most complete and whole, healthy human being. So today on the Culture Files, I would like for us to go through this latest compilation by Candace Owens.
All right, let's jump right into this. Let's start with Andrew Tate, because he is constantly referencing the Matrix. He always talks about the Matrix is attacking me. Let's actually slow that down for a second. What does he mean when he says the Matrix is coming after me? Well, of course, you're going, Candace. Obviously, he's referring to the movie, the series, in 1999, the series The Matrix, which if you haven't seen it.
Okay, so I think we all know what the Matrix is all about. And if you follow Candace, then you know that she is one of the most outspoken voices against the Matrix, the establishment of corruption, right? So she immediately has authority to talk about the Matrix.
And I think probably no clearer example of that in the past than watching the way that people who were saying, hey, maybe don't run out and get this new vaccine, were instantly slapped down. A bunch of Agent Smiths came out, said, you're dangerous. You're going to kill grandma. You're a grandma killer. You're so selfish. You had psychologists writing articles claiming that even people who had perceived themselves as perhaps wanting to think about the vaccine were displaying symptoms of being a psychopath. I mean, the entire machine was making people believe that in reality, everyone was going to die unless they got in line. That, my friends, is the Matrix. And there have been a lot of times that this has happened. We saw this with the Me Too movement. We saw this with BLM. And you can see how people really are programmed according to whatever it is that they are watching across the mainstream media. And people never really peep their head up and imagine, like, hey, what if they're all lying? What if they're enslaving my mind? What if the people that they're telling me are the good guys are the bad guys, and maybe some of the bad guys are the good guys?
This is brilliant and insightful and perceptive, as she has been for years on this topic. So I admire her so much for this stance and the strength that she has on pushing back and calling out the Matrix for what it is in all its forms. And I also, as a practitioner of psychology, not a licensed therapist, because this is one of the problems with the American Psychological Association and the professional organization around psychology, that they are being corrupted as well with a lot of the stances that they take and their messaging, influencing psychologists and experts in the field of psychology to toe the line of the Matrix, as Candace is referring to it here, and call things psychopathic that have nothing to do with sociopathy. And it's dangerous in our society not to understand what sociopathy is, because that it is a very dangerous phenomenon, and we need to be aware of what it really is. But just like everything in the Matrix and in the distortions in our modern society, it gets inverted, it gets turned upside down. And I believe that this is where, if you go higher levels, more macro, then you see this, what I believe is spiritual warfare. And Candace talks about this as well. This is another topic that she's just brilliant about and fearless in calling out the spiritual war for what it is. But in the spiritual war, they like to do these inversions, and they like to call what's good bad and what's bad good. Now, does that mean that someone who is as blatantly bad as Andrew Tate has been can somehow be actually good?
Messages reading, quote, I loved raping you, are now coming to light as Tate faces sex trafficking charges overseas. Vice World News published the messages and voice notes allegedly made by Tate. We want to warn you, they may be disturbing to some.
All right, you ready? Now, if you're saying this is AI, that would be a great defense. And here's the thing. This is going into court. And if it is AI, you're going to have to prove it, because it'll be almost presumed that it's the real deal because you have to have somebody lay foundation. That's how this works. So you can't just get a piece of evidence in just because you say it is what it is. Somebody's going to have to say, this is the recording of Andrew Tate, and it was sent to me. So whoever was the recipient of this, let's listen.
Am I a bad person? Because the more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it. I
Remember, that's exactly what I read to you in our last Mr. Tate video.
loved how much you hated it. Turned me on. Are you seriously so offended I strangled you a little bit?
I think I'd be offended if you strangled me a little bit.
You didn't f***ing pass out. Chill the f*** out. Jesus Christ. I thought you were cool. What's wrong with you?
I thought you were cool, so I could put my hands around your neck so you could watch your eyes pop out and get petechiae all over the place.
And if I had actually hurt anybody, the Romanian police would have me in jail.
What? Now, is that AI? If I would have actually hurt anybody, Romanian police would have me in jail. Where are you? I think you're in jail. And let's talk about the procedure a little bit. There's the evidence gathering stage, which is what we're in right now. You get charged. Then you go through pretrial procedures. Maybe you have some motions. Maybe you make a motion saying that all these recordings are AI and they're really not. And so you file a motion with the court. And then you bring the women in and you say, she says, no, he said this to me. And these would have been recorded on WhatsApp and apparently sent to them. So they would have the recordings. And if they come in and lay foundation for him, it is an admission of a party opponent. So it comes in as his own statement if it has sufficient indicia of reliability. That's kind of the standard. I'm Bruce Rivers. Thank you for watching us. Subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up our Patreon for crying out loud. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Okay, so thank you to Bruce Rivers for that analysis. These recordings that you just heard that are 100% aligned with extremely toxic and violent and criminal actions and behaviors are entered into evidence. And obviously, I'm not an attorney. Even Bruce doesn't have all the ins and outs of the Romanian law, but we do know that there are forensic analysis of audio that certainly all governments have in their court proceedings. So they would have to have either analyzed these audios already and just obviously wouldn't publicize that information, but either they have analyzed these recordings forensically and they believe, the prosecution of the Romanian government believe that these are authentic, or if they haven't already, they certainly will through the proceedings. So to say that they're AI and that they're fake is just really unlikely.
Oh, I've never even been to Romania. I've never even been here. They just found random girls we knew in other countries and made them sign pieces of paper.
Okay, so what he's asserting here is highly not impossible. Anything's possible, right? If the last 3 years have shown us anything in the Matrix, is that any level lying and twisting and distorting narratives is possible. But this is pretty far-fetched that the 35 new victims are all just random people that the Romanian government has somehow coerced into testifying against Andrew Tate.
This is a setup. It's absolutely disgusting. When they first threw us in jail, when they first put us in there, you're all running around saying human trafficker. None of you said, where's the evidence? Where's the proof?
Okay, where's the evidence? Where's the proof? This is also just classic gaslighting, which is a signature characteristic or behavior of narcissists and sociopaths, to act like that what he's being accused of isn't consistent with the things that he has asserted and the mentality that he has espoused for years. It's classic gaslighting.
Pictures. Where's the videos? None. 3 years later, they do the same bullshit. And you're all sitting there going, human trafficking. I'm not a human trafficker, clearly. If you human traffic someone, there is evidence. This is a setup. It's a stitch up. The three prosecutors that he called in my house, I said, why are you here? There's no case. They said, there's a case if we make one. This is a setup.
So says he, that the investigator said that to him. What he has said himself on recordings that have been entered into evidence is that he loved raping the woman that he was mocking on the phone clip.
All of it is. And listen, quiet. I'm going to talk to you, sir. Quiet. Be quiet.
Classic narcissistic behavior. No one else can speak. No one can ask him any questions. He is the only one who has the floor.
This is a setup. It is done on purpose, and it's designed to come up with the most heinous possible crimes to slander our name.
You heard what he said there, and I will repeat it for you. They have found 35 new victims. So this was a fishing expedition, no matter which way you slice it. You can't tell me that you first had 4 victims from Andrew Tate, and then you found, while you were making him wait and not allowing him to leave the state, 35 more victims. Now, I have not looked at these 35 more victims. I've been in communication with him. I'm asking him to send me the new documents because I want to fact check all of this before I present it to you, the public. But what he has said in that clip and what he confirmed to me today in a statement was that 31 of those 35 victims gave statements in favor of Andrew and Tristin Tate. Essentially, once again, the state is deeming them victims, and they are saying, we are not victims.
Well, okay, so just a journalistic note. Candace is a fabulous journalist, but she's repeating now what Andrew Tate says that the women have said. So there's no, as far as I know, there's no publicized statements from these 35 victims that refute the charges by the Romanian government. So just because Andrew Tate says that they say something, it's kind of, why even bring that up? That's clearly hearsay, right? So we have to assume the Romanian government has vetted these witnesses, or they would not be putting them on to testify, right? So I'm just kind of baffled because she is an excellent journalist, and I don't know why she would repeat, Andrew Tate's hearsay of what the women have said.
Again, I am taking his word for it when he says that, and I have not done my own due diligence. What I can say is that it is utterly absurd that any person would have their movements restricted for 3 years and not even being given a trial date. When I got my hands on the documents, I had to transfer it over into English because it's in Romanian, and I had to try to cross-reference with what person he was speaking about and ask specific questions. Like he says to the media right there in front of him, you are the Matrix. Why didn't any of you do due diligence? Why aren't you guys reporting on the facts? Why has it just been me who took a look into that case and said, hey guys, this kind of looks like crap. I've looked into it, and it was what was sitting in front of me, not the videos that are circling on the internet, not the videos.
Well, okay, we're talking about voice recordings. And again, the Romanian government is entering them into evidence. As for it taking so long, the more they dig into and investigate, unfortunately, the more evidence comes up. That's what it is, clearly understandable and reasonable. And I think that in an investigation, that often does happen once you start looking into someone as evil as allegedly, if the recordings are real, obviously that is evil, and we can easily call that out. But if that is the case, then I think restricting his freedoms is kind of minor compared to the violations, the violence, and the evil that he's perpetrated on these women.
And people are saying, well, listen here, he said that he did have underage webcam. That's not what is happening in this. This is not what this court case is about. You have to read the actual documents and then ask yourself why they are trying to execute this trial by the media. What is this actually about?
So I did actually read the documents, and what it is about is they're being charged with rape, human trafficking, and organized crime, and those are very specific things. Back to our attorney friend who explained the sex trafficking aspect, or the charge of sex trafficking in itself is very specific, and the allegations, including evidence, are pointing to the requirements of meeting that definition of sex trafficking. So that is all in the documents.
Now it's about money laundering? Is it about a webcam business? Is it about human sex trafficking? Is it about all three, according to the public?
It's about all three, according to the documents. Those are the 3 charges.
Why does the media hate these 2 men so much when we know there are worse villains?
I don't know. If you believe the audio recordings are fake, maybe, but I think if you believe that the audio, as the Romanian government clearly does, if you believe they're real, then it's pretty obvious why. And no, I don't think there's any worse villain than that.
Remember that tweet he wrote, 30 is the year you can finally fuck a girl half your age? That's what he wrote on Twitter.
What do we call that, Michael?
Self-snitching.
Yeah. So they're online, and I guarantee you that if they do have a trial, every last word that they've uttered online is going to go right through the courthouse.
Andrew for years and years.
So Vivian's been with me six.
He's been with Vivian for 6 years, right?
Vivian's like 21.
Vivian's 21. And at this point, he's been a girlfriend for 6 years. I mean, so what does that make it out to be? That she's 15. And so he says it's all a setup by his own words. By his own words. He's done the math himself. So this is not a setup. So the BBC asked Andrew Tate repeatedly about the allegations of sex with a 15-year-old that he's just admitted to and trafficking underage person. But guess what? He didn't address that. He just walked away. He didn't say anything, refused to reply. Why? He shouldn't have been saying anything to the cameras because this is the Matrix. This is blah, 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 blah. It's all bullshit, right? The Tate brothers have previously been charged with human trafficking, and Tate is charged with rape, and they're awaiting trial on those charges. These are all new charges. These are all new investigation.
Whether you hate these guys, whether you love these guys, whether you believe these guys, whether you think they are lying, you have a right to have a speedy trial. And yes, I am defensive over this because I see this happen routinely to people.
I think that she's defensive because she is unfairly attacked. It's not remotely fair to put yourself, Candace, in the same even category as Tate.
That stand up to the mainstream media narrative, no matter what that narrative is, whether it's BLM, whether it's COVID, whether it's Israel. People that stand up tend to suffer tremendously, and it's wrong.
I completely agree with that. And I would point to Dr. Paul Thomas as a true hero. There's so many better examples of heroism, including Candace, in the war against the Matrix and against the establishment. Just because he aligned himself and cloaked himself in that way does not even remotely make him comparable to anyone doing anything toward justice. I would just offer up Dr. Paul Thomas as an example of a real hero of the fight in this war, this spiritual war, and this economic, pharmaceutical, industrial complex war in the Matrix that Candace is speaking of. Dr. Paul Thomas, you can see here on the screen the study that he conducted in his pediatric practice. The Matrix, the establishment went after him and really tried to destroy him. And the organization that I was involved with, Children's Health Defense, defended him to the medical boards. They tried to take away his license. And there are just so many real heroes who are actually good people whose dogma isn't at odds with standing up for good and what's actually going to make society and individual people and children especially healthy. If you're for what's good in society and you're against the things in society that are causing people suffering and death and pain, then you can't also be advocating for other things in society that cause people suffering and pain and debilitation. So as Andrew Tate does. So let's take a look at a criminal defense attorney.
When you have 35 potential victims, one is you can beat one, maybe you can beat two, maybe you can beat a couple. But when you have 35 of them, I mean, you're getting into like a critical mass where it's just almost impossible. You think, does the statute of limitations apply? If there was a motion to dismiss because the statute of limitations had been blown, his team would have done that. But when you have an ongoing conspiracy, there's no statute of limitations. When you have certain sex crimes, the statute of limitations doesn't start running until it's reported to cops, basically. So once it's reported, and they do that because people oftentimes are very reluctant to come forward.
I think that a speedy trial is an ideal, but also justice, which has gone so long, both in the 2015 case that never went anywhere, and then the women from a year ago. All of these women are subject to retaliation, to being absolutely destroyed. We know the statistics of victims coming forward is not good. Now we have allegedly 35 victims coming forward, which is just statistically speaking, usually that would be representative of a drop in the bucket. And so I think that the right for justice here outweighs the need for a speedy trial.
Guys, I want to first and foremost, before we get into this Rabbi Shmuley story, which is really kind of on the same point of an abuse of justice, what can you say when you see a headline like this? What can you actually say when you read a headline from the Jerusalem Post that says that the FBI has been contacted over Hawaiian pizza? So I will just read for you here, I guess, the facts, okay?
So Candace goes on to cover the story of Rabbi Shmuley, his attack on her and getting the FBI involved, which is crazy, absolutely insane. So there may be just a little bit of projection going on here where Candace is facing unfair persecution in a way, or at least attempted persecution. But so maybe she's identifying a little bit with the injustice of that and projecting that onto Andrew Tate, when it isn't really fitting, because he is a different animal than Candace entirely. Candace is a real warrior. But if you look at all of the examples of Andrew Tate talking like this, it is not because he's defending children and an ethical society and standing up to the Matrix. It's because he is really asserting himself. He is definitely a warrior, but for one person, him.
I moved to Romania 10 years ago, and I found an amazing country full of beautiful people. And I told the whole world about Romania.
A whole country full of beautiful people that he has been charged with assaulting and exploiting.
I'm asking this question again. I don't have all the facts here, but I'm looking at your guys' comments and it looks like what you're saying is true. They just got released a few hours ago and now the cops are back at their house right now. Park aside your feelings about the industry that they were involved in. You will get an agreement from me regarding pornography and webcamming and things of that nature. This has been 3 years of his life.
Okay, I understand that it has been a long process, but what it looks like is that when there were charges brought in 2015, were rape and assault charges brought several times in over the past many years, and I think it was the British government wouldn't pursue it, and there's just so much that keeps coming up, and it's like as soon as they start investigating, more women show up, more crimes, more evidence. They keep getting more information and more charges. And I think that is why they keep adding charges on and that it is dragging on for so long. I agree with Candace that it would be great if this could be expedited, but I think that the more they look at Andrew Tate's case, the more monstrous crimes surface, unfortunately.
The Dicot office, Andrew Tate told the BBC on Wednesday night that the latest allegations were pathetic and the prosecutors were desperate. And he said that they had made up a lot. One thing that they didn't make up is that he started banging Vivian when she was 15 years old, performed sexual acts in order to make online videos and content. And he said he kept all 1.5 million in profit. Now, here's the thing. Is it illegal to have somebody online and to profit from it? No, that's not illegal. Sex trafficking, if you remember what we said, Michael, is force, fraud, or coercion. And so when you deny somebody access to their passport, for example, so they can't travel, that's force or coercion. You put them in a situation where they don't have power to leave. Same man is accused of repeatedly having sexual relations with a girl who was 15-year-olds when they met. Who does that sound like?
And just in case you think that I'm some kind of neo-feminist or progressive, that could not be further from the truth. The traditional family, the sacred union, it's everything that I advocate for and work for awareness on is very much the feminine and masculine, divine feminine, divine masculine, sacred union, which I will give you a little piece of here from when I was interviewed by Radha Nelia. Her podcast is Galactic Goddess, and I'm very much sex positive, masculinity positive. And I just think that voices like Andrew Tate very much damage and sabotage the sacred union and the sanctity and dignity of relationships.
Angela Braden, who is an emotional freedom technique master and who works with couples to clear their barriers of sacred union. I would just add too that the queen mentality craves
that masculine leadership and craves that maturity.
I said
So
masculine
I think
leadership.
that it's just magic for the feminine when a man is able to step into that king energy and it's mature. And then at the same time, the lover energy is playful. So we do want that playful, but we want the maturity that goes along, with it. So it's not just stuck down here in the playful kind of aimless masculine. Or I think. And then how when the king and the queen archetypes, come together, how that can elevate each partner in the couple way more than they would doing their individual work, even though individual work is important. What I've seen in my work with couples is that when they're each doing their individual work and then they come together, the way that synergy happens in the masculine feminine union, like elevates each of them and the relationship just exponentially more than it could on its own. And then of course, with the divine, bring God into it. It's just so powerful.
Do you want to share a little bit about your work, Angela, and the working with the masculine and feminine?
I work with couples using the modality that I'm trained in called emotional freedom technique. It's meridian tapping on acupressure points, but I do integrate just a knowledge base of masculine feminine dynamics within that. So just EFT, emotional freedom technique, it's an energy psychology modality, and you can use it in pulling on any number of foundational psychological principles. And the feminine masculine is one of those. So I love working with those dynamics. And I've seen in my couples really transform couples that I work with if they are able to see where their partner has a need for a more masculine energy or archetype to come through. For example, if she needs to feel more protected, or she needs to feel more of that, lover energy where it's safe to play and to be playful or silly. And, the feminine needs that. But when we're each getting their masculine feminine needs met, it's just magic. But how I would apply that in my work is through emotional freedom technique. What it does is overrides neurological pathways. So we can work through past events that happen that caused, a wound or a barrier or something, in between the couple that's gotten in the way of their experiencing true intimacy, true trust. That could be a limiting belief, or it could be an event. And what we do is we tap on the meridian points using specific language. That's a big part of our training in emotional freedom technique, is to use neurolinguistics, which is a field, it was already existing before EFT was invented. But we, with words, with language, just the way, the magic of our brains, the words will stimulate neuropathways that we want to affect. So if we want to affect the neuropathways associated with a specific memory, that maybe something bad happened between the couple that created a break of trust or something, we can work through those. Or if the couple, let's say like the man has embraced more of his masculine energy and has stepped into this king archetype, for example, that we just talked about, and the female partner isn't understanding it or isn't accepting it, you can use EFT to break down limiting beliefs or subconscious programming that the female partner may have it's in the way of fully accepting the masculine gifts that the male partner has. And then she can experience the nourishment from the masculine that she actually needs and didn't even know she needed, or had the barriers in the way of receiving that. It is a game changer in terms of really transforming the couple and helping them evolve and elevate to the sacred union that they want.
So I'm just sharing this so that you will understand. I have a lot of admiration for masculinity. I have a lot of respect and for masculinity, healthy, mature masculinity. So I don't hate men or anything like that. The version of man that Andrew Tate espouses is a danger to all of this, right? It's a danger to the ability for women to be vulnerable in the first place. And it's a danger for men to be brainwashed by leaders. I'm all for masculine leadership. I said it, I say it every day, but the kind of leadership that Tate is promulgating is unfortunately dangerous to the sacred union, to the family, to children, to women, to men. It's a recipe for deprivation for men. And you're going to hear in a second Michael Canton speak. This is a version of a healthy, whole, and empowered masculine, and he has men's groups and does a lot of work one-on-one and in groups for men to be able to really harness their masculine power and in the most healthy ways, and to grow into the leadership that is actually good for society and good for men, and actually ends up giving the man also the most fulfilling and satisfying existence and experience. So I encourage any men who are interested in a true masculine journey to check out Michael Canton's work at Sacred Psychotherapy, which I'll link.
Beautiful. And Michael, you also do work with some aspects of energy work or energy healing. I'd love to hear about that, because it's more common now. A lot of counselors, psychologists are bringing those aspects and making it more holistic.
Yeah, it's so fantastic because, when we're working with energy, we're working on a layer and a level that is different than the mind. Different than us thinking things out or talking things out. We're like, oh, we're going deep. We're going deep here. We want to go to the level of where is the blockage in your energy field that's contributing to the way things are coming up symptomatically. That's one reason why I love EFT. Something that has to do with anxiety or worry that's in the Chinese system that's found usually in the stomach, right, and spleen. So when we get anxious, you feel butterflies, right, or you feel some sort of like nervousness in our belly. We do a healing sound that clears that, or if we have a lot of anger and resentment that's held in the liver. So we do a specific healing sound that clears the liver. And if we don't clear those things, guess what? We start to have symptoms on a physical level, like irritable bowel syndrome, or we start having liver and gallbladder issues medically. So
I just love practitioners like Michael who have studied and they have all the education. He's a licensed psychotherapist, but they are wise enough and aware enough to integrate these energy psychology modalities into their practices. And in my experience as a health journalist and a psychology journalist and then practitioner in my later years, I have noticed that some of the most brilliant doctors and most brilliant therapists, psychotherapists are recognizing these energy modalities. And in the case of EFT, as a side note, it does have over 100 peer-reviewed double-blind studies now, which is the gold standard in research, showing that it is effective. So it's no longer woo-woo, just as a side note. But let's get back to Candace. Please do check out Michael Canton at Sacred Psychotherapy and Rod Anelia on Galactic Goddess TV if you are interested in more of the spiritual aspects of relationship and life in general. Part of the purpose of this video is to bring awareness around antisocial personality disorder and narcissism. If you can recognize it, you will be more protected. Your children and families will be more protected out there in society. When you hear the coverage of the story, keep in mind that narcissistic personality disorder is more prevalent in men, and that 20 to 40% of narcissistics will also be antisocial personality disorder. So those characteristics they overlap a lot, and I'm not diagnosing any individual, but I'm just saying that the videos that we've seen of him, the audios that we've heard of him, his own messaging, his own videos, his own teachings, his own philosophies, and all of that points to is just textbook narcissistic personality disorder characteristics. So maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's an act. The grandiosity, the self-centeredness, suggesting that he has even the country of Romania is now associated with him in the populace, and just all of the violent messaging that he aims at women and people who are decent, just being decent people. So it's important to keep our social personality disorder radar up here in this case. Again, we cannot diagnose. Only specific PhD psychologists meeting someone for an extended period of time repeatedly in a therapeutic setting can diagnose. We cannot diagnose from the messaging that Tate puts out, or even analyzing videos of him. But we can say that this is an example of narcissistic personality mentality at work. So you can see it at work. Is it a coincidence? Is it an act? Or is Andrew Tate different now? This is an alternative that we should be open to. I believe so much in redemption and transformation, but I haven't heard anybody from the Andrew camp saying anything along those lines. There's been zero remorse or correction from him. I know that he has instigated this rebranding sort of campaign, I would say, with his content. There is a lot of content that is praising women, traditional women, family mothers, but unfortunately there is missing some kind of statement about all the things that he said before. Even if he wants to exclude those audios of the conversations with the women that he violated, a lot of the things that he said in the public sphere, he could address those things. He could address the horrifically toxic things that he's taught and preached. He could address those things, and he could say that he was wrong, and he could express how he went through this transformation. But I haven't heard anything like that. So if anybody has, please do share, because I would love to have some indication that he's remorseful about any of his past ways, his ideology and his philosophies toward women and toward relationships and how they should be, and what it means to be a man, all the things that he's taught. If he's transforming, then I would celebrate that. I would absolutely celebrate that. But that's not what I've heard from Candace either. If that's what she believes, maybe she believes that he's changed and he is different from all of the past teachings. But we've got to look at the consistency in his messaging. And unfortunately, it's perfectly consistent with the charges that are being levied against him. Has Andrew Tate changed and transformed, and he can now be a good representative of masculine leadership? That would be fantastic. He's obviously intelligent and he has a huge following. I would love to have him be a credible voice on what it means to be a divine masculine man, and what is actually going to lead to the most fulfilling and satisfying relationship, including sexual relationship between a man and a woman. And it's not what he's been preaching at all. And if that resonates with you, I have a lot of free content that you can check out on my Instagram, which is attachment_activist. And you can also learn about my couples program there. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you. And please do comment. What do you believe is the case? Is Andrew Tate being set up? Is all of this made up by the Romanian government, and all of these women are just making this up and setting him up? Or is he justified in his teachings, and is he justified in his activities, or is he transformed? Do you think that he's a different man than all the past things he's said and taught? I would love to get some more perspectives and some more insight on this developing case.